Marissa Crowley was already screaming when I stepped out of my truck, her voice slicing through the orchard like a siren. "Get off my land," she barked, as 2 patrol cars boxed in the driveway, deputies watching me like I was one bad breath from handcuffs. Neighbors lined the road phones, recording, waiting for something to explode. Marissa pointed at me, shaking with fury. "Arrest him now." I didn't move. I just unzipped my bag, slowly, deliberately enough to make both deputies tense. And when she smirked, thinking she'd won, I said, "You really should have checked who came back today." Marissa didn't wait for the deputies to speak. She stormed straight to the gate, snatched a laminated form from her clipboard, and slammed it against the metal bars like it was a warrant. "This notice gives me full authority over this property," she declared, loud enough for the neighbors to gasp. "He's an unregistered occupant. Remove him." She didn't even look at the land behind her, just at me, like clearing me out was her morning workout. One sentence told me everything Marissa acted like Meadowcrest HOA was her personal kingdom. Deputy Hale reached for the paper, but Marissa yanked it back before he could read the seal. "No, you follow my directive," she snapped, turning her glare back to me. "This orchard falls under HOA jurisdiction now. You were warned. Warned I'd only been back for 3 days. 3 quiet days spent checking the fences my grandfather once built, and unlocking the old farmhouse I hadn't seen since returning from federal security work years ago." That was all the background the deputies needed, but Marissa wasn't done performing. She took one step closer, lowering her voice to make it sound official. "You don't belong here, Mr. Maddox. This land is under my supervision, and I don't tolerate trespassers." Her eyes lit up like she expected me to break, to back away, to hand her control she never actually had. Instead, I watched her hands carefully, because people who crave power always reveal themselves in their movements, and Marissa was already showing her tell. The first sign something was off came the morning after I returned. I walked out to the front gate and found a bright orange slip taped to it. "Unregistered occupant, immediate contact, required." No name, no signature, just a printed HOA logo. Marissa loved flashing around like it came from Congress. She showed up 5 minutes later, pretending she was checking in. "Rough night here?" she asked, glancing at my truck, then at the house as if she expected trespassers to crawl out of the windows. "I'm fine," I said. "I don't need HOA services." She smiled in a way that wasn't a smile. "Everyone needs HOA services." Then came the questions: where I worked, how long I was staying, who authorized my return. 3 days back on my family's orchard, just trying to reopen the old farmhouse my grandfather left in my name, and she was already digging. More colored slips appeared over the next 24 hours, pink, yellow, blue. Each one said less than the last, but implied more. Failure to comply. Unauthorized presence. Inspection pending. A normal HOA would have sent a welcome packet. Marissa sent warnings like she was preparing for war. By day 4, she stopped pretending. I was hauling a coil of irrigation hose when I saw her on the roadside, snapping photos of the barn, the farmhouse porch, even the apple crate stacked beside my truck. Her phone clicked like a metronome, steady, intentional. Documenting violations, she announced, not bothering to step back when I approached. "You're on my property," I reminded her. The limestone marker was right under her feet. She stepped forward anyway, 2 full strides past the boundary. HOA inspection rights. She aimed her phone at my kitchen window. "That's enough," I said. Marissa ignored the words, but her hands told the truth, fidgeting, restless, desperate to assert control. I'd seen that same twitch in people who pushed authority they didn't actually have. Years of working federal security taught me how to read hands better than faces. When I blocked her view, she clicked her tongue. "I'm marking this as non-cooperation. For an HOA I'm not even part of." "You will be," she said, turning away as if the matter was settled. And that's when the unease settled in my gut, not because she trespassed, but because she acted like she'd already won. The next hit wasn't subtle. I went to the barn to grab a toolbox, and the padlock hung twisted on a single bolt. Inside shelves were pried open, dust scattered, and 2 items were gone. My grandfather's old Coleman generator and his steel mechanics set, the same tools he'd taught me to fix fences with when I was 12. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the space where they belonged. Losing the tools wasn't about money. It felt like someone had cut pieces out of my memories and hauled them away. A throat cleared behind me. "Mr. Dalton," my closest neighbor, hovered by the barn door, hands stuffed deep into his jacket. "I didn't want to get involved," he whispered, "but I saw a silver SUV here around midnight. Looked like Marissa's." I thanked him, then knelt beside the security cabinet. My grandfather had installed analog cameras decades ago, grainy, unreliable, but stubbornly functional. Most feeds were static, but one camera near the hay rack flickered to life. Movement. 3 figures. One woman in a turquoise jacket, two men loading equipment into an SUV. My stomach hardened. This wasn't harassment anymore. This was Marissa carving into the orchard like she owned it and taking pieces of my family with her. She made her next move before I could make mine. Two deputies arrived just after noon, lights flashing, but sirens silent. Deputy Rourke approached first, one hand on his belt. "Sir, we received a complaint," he said. "Claims of unlawful occupation and property damage." "Let me guess," I replied. Complainant's wearing turquoise. He didn't confirm, but his sigh did. Marissa strutted out from behind the patrol car like she'd summoned the cavalry. "There he is," she barked. "He broke into the barn, he's refusing orders, he's threatening the community." Threatening, I hadn't raised my voice once. Deputy Hale scanned the property. "Do you have documents proving you're allowed to be here?" I handed him the basics, temporary paperwork I'd pulled from my files while sorting the farmhouse. Enough to show my name, not enough to tell the whole story. I wasn't ready to play my full hand. "I'll need to verify this," Hale said. Marissa folded her arms triumphantly, too triumphantly. Standing between two law enforcement officers didn't intimidate me. I'd stood in more volatile standoffs guarding high-risk sites. But what did bother me was the glint in Marissa's eyes. She'd tasted a little authority, and now she wanted the whole orchard. The final straw slapped me in the face, literally. A blood-red eviction notice hung on my front door, the next morning stamped with a bogus HOA seal and the words, 24-hour removal order. The paper was laminated thick and shameless. "This property is hereby transferred to Caretaker Authority M. Crowley." Caretaker Authority. She'd practically crowned herself queen. Houses along the road had their blinds parted. People were watching, some whispering, some shaking their heads. The narrative was spreading fast. Maybe the land wasn't mine. Maybe Marissa had legal grounds. Maybe I was about to be forced out. I took a slow breath, went inside, and pulled the analog drive from the barn camera. The footage was clearer than I expected. Marissa sneaking onto the porch, slapping a notice onto the door, then later hauling my grandfather's generator into her SUV with her two helpers. That was the moment everything settled. Not anger, precision. I gathered every document, every clip, every timestamp into a single black folder. Then I made one call. "Briggs," I said when he answered. "I need eyes on something." Lieutenant Briggs didn't hesitate. "Send it. And Maddox, I'll head your way." When I hung up, I looked out at the orchard. The wind rattled the leaves like a warning. Marissa thought she was staging a public takedown today. Fine. Let her call the deputies. Let her gather an audience. She had no idea she'd just set the stage for her own downfall. By the time I reached the front gate again, the scene had transformed. Neighbors lined both sides of the road, phones raised like antennae waiting to capture disaster. Two patrol cruisers blocked the driveway, and in the middle stood Marissa Crowley, arms flung wide, voice cracking through the orchard like a chainsaw. "There, do your job. Arrest him," she screamed, pointing at me as if she were presenting evidence to a jury. Deputy Hale stepped forward, visibly torn. "Ma'am, we still need to." "No," she snapped. "You had your chance yesterday. This man is trespassing on HOA property. Remove him now." I brushed past the gate, dropped my black folder onto the hood of the nearest cruiser, and opened it without a word. The orchard fell quiet enough to hear gravel shift beneath my boots. I laid out the deed first. Wyatt Maddox. Transfer of estate. Grayford County seal, dated and certified. Rourke lifted the document, squinting. "This looks legitimate." Marissa lunged forward. "It's fake, obviously fake. Anyone can print a deed." A ripple of doubt spread through the crowd, but not toward me. I pulled out the second item, a worn leather case. When I flipped it open, both deputies stiffened. Emergency Response Security Commission identification, no, 47 MD. A federal credential that wasn't just hard to fake, it was illegal to even attempt. I didn't raise my voice. "I told you I belong here. Now let me show you why." Marissa tried to talk over me, her arms waving like she was drowning in her own lies. "He stole that, he made that, don't fall for it." But the deputies were no longer looking at her. Rourke held the credential with careful fingers. Hale leaned closer to the deed. Phones around us zoomed in. The crowd grew still, sensing the imbalance shift. I tapped my phone screen, opening the first video clip. Instant silence. The footage flickered, then sharpened into grainy night vision. A woman in a turquoise jacket, Marissa, creeping across my porch, peeling a laminated notice from her bag, sticking it to the door, adjusting it, stepping back to admire her. Work. Gasps shot through the crowd. But I wasn't done. Clip 2 rolled automatically, the barn interior, the faint outline of shelves, then movement. Marissa again, this time flanked by two men hauling my grandfather's Coleman generator toward a silver SUV. One of the men stumbled. She hissed at him to hurry. Someone in the crowd whispered, "Oh my God." Another, "That's straight up theft." Marissa's voice cracked. No, he edited that, he spliced it, I held the phone higher. Metadata's intact. Timestamp from the original drive. No cuts. Deputy Hale slowly exhaled. "Ma'am, this doesn't look good. It's fabricated," she shrilled. "I'm the caretaker of this property. The HOA appointed me." A man in the crowd barked out a laugh. Caretaker. Since when Marissa flinched, cornered but still refusing to back down. I set the phone on the hood beside the credential. These aren't allegations. These are facts. And before this goes further, there's one more person arriving who can verify everything. Her face paled. Who? Right on cue, a third cruiser rolled up the road lights bouncing off the orchard trees. The vehicle stopped with the weight of authority. Lieutenant Briggs stepped out, uniform, crisp expression, sharp, but his features softened when he saw me. "Maddox," he said with a slow nod. "Didn't expect you back so soon." A collective murmur swept the crowd. Marissa spun toward him, desperate. "Lieutenant, finally arrest this man. He's trespassing, forging documents, impersonating Briggs," held up one hand. "Ma'am, I'm going to look at the paperwork first." I handed him the deed. He scanned it, then compared the county seal to the one on his tablet. "It's real." Then he tapped a few keys. "Windmere Orchard is recorded as independent land, not HOA. Never has been." He turned to Marissa. "So, tell me, what exactly are you supervising?" Her mouth opened but no sound came out. Briggs continued, "Because if you're claiming authority over land that isn't yours, that's a problem." She scrambled for her clipboard, pulling out a sheet with a bright red stamp. "Here, the HOA approval, this proves I'm caretaker." He took, it looked once snorted. "County seal's crooked. Issue date is wrong. And the signature at the bottom belongs to Judge Monroe, retired 8 years ago." The crowd erupted. Briggs's tone sharpened. "Marissa Crowley, you are being detained for falsifying documents, trespassing, impersonating authority, and suspected theft of property." "No, you can't do this. He's the trespasser. I'm the one protecting the community." Her voice was swallowed by the metallic click of handcuffs. Neighbors cheered, actual cheers, echoing between the orchard rows. Phones zoomed in. Someone yelled justice at Windmere. Marissa twisted toward me as the deputies guided her to the cruiser. "This isn't over. I'll fight this. You'll regret coming back." I stepped forward just enough for her to hear me. "No," I said calmly. "Your regret started the moment you walked onto my porch." As the cruiser door slammed shut, the orchard finally fell quiet. The moment Marissa's cruiser rolled away, the orchard changed. It wasn't loud anymore, not the kind of loud that comes from shouting accusations or the frantic scramble of a cornered liar. Instead, a different kind of noise settled in murmurs, slow breaths, the shuffle of boots on dirt, as neighbors lowered their phones and finally let themselves exhale. Deputy Hale gave Briggs a nod and walked toward me, his posture no longer tense. "Sir," he said, clearing his throat, "I think we owe you an apology. Things were misrepresented to us." "I figured they were," I replied, though I didn't rub it in. "They weren't the villains, just people who'd been fed the wrong story by the loudest person in the room." Mr. Dalton stepped forward next, wringing his cap between his hands. "Cole, I'm sorry I didn't speak sooner. She scared half this road. You coming back, it kind of changed everything." "It's all right," I told him. "Fear does strange things to people." Jen Avery joined, her voice softer. "She told us the orchard was abandoned. She said she had paperwork. Most of us didn't believe her, but it was easier to stay quiet." I nodded. Well, silence is exactly what she was counting on. Behind them, Lieutenant Briggs examined the final documents on the cruiser hood. "We'll mark this property accurately in county records," he said. "No HOA claims. No caretaker nonsense. Everything she filed, every notice, gets locked in evidence." A weight eased from my shoulders. Not because I doubted the truth, but because the truth finally had witnesses. I walked up the porch steps without thinking, my hand drifting across the weathered rail, still smooth in places where my grandfather used to sand it every spring. The rocking chair creaked in the breeze, exactly as I remembered. Just that small sound pulled a memory out of me so vivid, I had to pause him sitting right here at Sunset Boots, dusty hands covered in engine grease, telling me that land only belongs to someone who's willing to protect it. I hadn't planned on fighting anyone when I came back. I just wanted to unlock a house full of old echoes and take one quiet step into my family's past. But some things, some legacies, don't stay quiet unless you make them. Briggs stepped onto the porch with me, resting a hand on the rail. "She'll be held overnight," he said. Forgery, impersonation, tampering with posted notices, the DA won't take that lightly. What about the theft, I asked. That too. We already photographed the SUV. We'll recover your tools and generator. And once we pull her phone records, her messages, her HOA emails, well, the case won't be hard to build. Neighbors overheard and drifted closer. Tom Rivas scratched his jaw. Does that mean the HOA's done, or just... Her Briggs shrugged. I can't decide that, but the board will have to answer for electing someone who never had authority in the first place. Jen folded her arms, exhaling sharply. Truth is, none of us ever voted. She just took over after the last president moved. Started printing rules, fines, inspections. Half the town thought she was legit. Tom shook his head. And the other half didn't want to be the one she went after next. Their words weren't angry, they were relieved, like spirit levels finally settling after years of imbalance. Briggs turned back to me. We'll file a full incident report. I'll stay until we secure all evidence and update every unit in this district that the orchard is under your name, not the HOA. I respected that. Briggs didn't need to stay, he wanted to, because he once trained under me, yes, but also because he believed in doing things right, even when others only pretended to. I watched the last patrol cruiser drive slowly down the gravel road, its lights dim now, signaling that the emergency, the illusion of one, was over. And yet the orchard still felt charged, as if the land itself had been holding its breath. For the first time since coming home, the property felt mine again, not in paperwork, not in argument, but in truth. As neighbors began drifting back toward their homes, a soft laugh rippled from somewhere in the crowd. Jen held up her phone. Cole, you should know something. She showed me the screen. Local group chat, Meadowcrest, Watchdogs, already exploding with messages, videos, memes, and screenshots of Marissa being handcuffed. Comments scrolled faster than she could swipe. Well, I said that was quick. Tom snorted. You kidding? This road hasn't seen entertainment like that since the tractor parade. Even Briggs cracked a grin. Public opinion moves fast when someone broadcasts their own downfall. But nothing in the chat surprised me. People weren't laughing at Marissa because she was caught. They were laughing because she had built her entire identity on control, and it all collapsed the second real authority showed up. A breeze rolled through the orchard, shaking the apple branches gently. The sun dipped low, brushing the farmhouse in gold. Everything looked exactly as it did years ago, except I wasn't a kid staring at a future I couldn't predict. I was a man returning to a legacy that refused to be stolen. I stepped inside the house for the first time since arriving, the old hinges groaning in a familiar tone. Dust motes floated in the doorway, light swirling like they recognized me. I set my duffel down. Not a temporary place anymore, not a stopover, a return. Outside, neighbors were still talking, still unwinding the years of tension Marissa had wrapped around them. But it all felt distant now, softened by the calm settling over the orchard. I stepped back onto the porch, letting my hand rest on the rocking chair's worn edge. Grandpa Wyatt used to end every long day with the same line, half warning, half promise. No one takes what's rooted in our blood. Tonight I finally understood what he meant. And as the last cruiser disappeared beyond the trees, I repeated the words quietly, firmly, not as a memory, but as a vow.